All right, today is Sunday, May 3rd, around 10 a.m. And I'm going to try to get through another 20 or 30 pages of this script. Everything is free. My psychological horror screenplay, kind of symbolic about the music industry and some of those themes that I've talked about already. We left off with the first real horror scene, the death scene of David as he was in the fountain drinking his whiskey bottle, and somehow this black slug, mysterious, disgusting slug, crawled into the whiskey bottle. He drank it unknowingly, and he would suffocate because of this thing he just drank. So we ended on that scene. He's in the fountain underwater, dead. And I was talking about, yeah, when you write a horror script, you have to be ready to kill everyone in your story. And that's just how it is. He was a likable character. It was fun to get through half the script with his type of balanced outlook at the music industry. At least, well, I was going to say in that time period in the late 60s, but I was just listening to another podcast earlier this morning about the best albums of the 90s, and Fugazi came up, and they're talking about how Fugazi was pretty much formed in that DIY style to stay away from all that bias of the music industry, the greed and the corruption and just the social engineering and all that demographic marketing bullshit. So that's always been appealing to me too. It sucks that I didn't get into them when I was younger. I listened to just, what everyone else listened to. But no one ever brought up Fugazi when I was in my teenage years in the 90s. I didn't get into Fugazi till lately, a couple years ago. And I still haven't really heard all their stuff. But so it's cool. Like, it's connected to this time period. And I go into a little bit later about how you look at how Elvis was portrayed by the record executives. Like, he was a puppet. I'm not saying he wasn't talented. Also, they were the podcast I listened to talked about Chuck D and Public Enemy and how they had that one song about how Elvis was not someone that they looked up to because, a lot of people in that hip hop community will view Elvis as a thief for stealing black music. And there's plenty of truth to that too. I don't know if it's really an indictment on Elvis as a person or just the music industry in general, how they would rip people off and steal music from vulnerable people. It's just how any business really does it in America. Not just America. I'm sure it happens everywhere. That's the cutthroat nature of the music business. And it's seen today as well, but in different avenues because of the digital revolution. It changed the music industry completely. All right, so we'll get into the story now. I don't want to talk too much. We just had the death scene. I'm on page 40. We had the first death scene, the first look at some of the darker moments of this script, because it is supposed to be a psychological horror. So we left off with David's death. It's a pretty powerful scene. This marks about the halfway point of this movie. It's only about 40 more pages to read. So now we're going to go a few nights later, and we're at Leonardo's Cafe. I don't really know how you would show that. It could be the next night. It could be whatever. We're at Leonardo's Cafe at night as Shannon sits at the bar next to Neil and Rose, surrounded by other young folkies and artists and beats, as Leo approaches from behind the bar and pours out 4 shots for all of them. Leo, la morte mi trovera vivo. It's Italian for death will find me alive. So they all share a moment of silence, then drink the shots together, just as a young beatnik poet, male, kind of snobby, he stands on top of a chair, clears his throat, and reads from a book. Beatnik poet. To have no yesterday and no tomorrow, to forget time, to forget life, to be at peace. You can help me. You can open for me the portals of death's house. For love is always with you, and love is stronger than death is. He's reading from The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. I don't know why I picked that. I don't remember. I think I was looking for something. I've never read anything by Oscar Wilde. But for some reason, I don't know, I found that quote. Maybe I was looking up quotes about death, and that one just caught my attention. So that's what I went with. I don't really have a better explanation than that. I just like some of the language. You can open for me the portals of death's house, for love is always with you, and love is stronger than death is. I just had a good ring to it. Kind of fit some of the themes of this movie. All right. So Neil chugs the rest of his beer. He's noticeably drunk. He slams it onto the bar and pushes the beat poet off the chair. Neil, shut up. You didn't even know him. A few patrons help Leo pull Neil back, then try to calm him down as they lead him outside. Neil, all of you, just shut the hell up. All right, so his motivation in this scene, Neil was, from the beginning of this movie, his whole life was just a band. So now David's dead, and he doesn't know what his future will be because the leader of the band is gone. So he's just all kinds of fucked up at this point. Drunk out of his mind and just belligerent. He doesn't think anyone really cared about David and the music besides himself. All right, well then Rose walks after him as the moods start to calm back down once they both go outside. As Candace walks in the bar and sits next to Shannon at the bar. Candace, you holding up all right? Hold on 1 second, sorry. I just wanted to make sure it was recording. Candace, you holding up all right? Shannon drinks her beer. Candace, you'll be fine. Just take it easy for a few days. She lights up a cigar. Candace, David and I didn't always seem to get along, but I was actually a pretty big supporter of his in the past. He just never wanted it badly enough, could never fully commit. She stares deeply into Shannon's eyes and clutches her hand. Candace, artists like that, who can't expose their vulnerabilities to the world, they'll always let their demons get the last word, whispering. They're cowards, shaffy pretenders. Don't you ever become like that. All right, time cut till later that night, still inside the Leonardo's Cafe, as Neil and Rose perform their version of What the Devil Can't Buy. That was the song from the first scene when Shannon first saw the band in the park. My original song, number 1. So they perform a version of that on stage, kind of as a tribute to David. Neil playing guitar and singing, and Rose on fiddle and singing. So Neil especially pours his heart out in his final tribute to David as Shannon watches from a corner of the room, tears falling. So if there's anything I could add to this script and movie later, it would be something like David was a kind of folk legend in that community, but he just didn't want to be a part of the larger business atmosphere of the music industry. I think I kind of represented that enough, but yeah, he's kind of like a underground folk legend type of guy. That's why maybe people looked up to him like that. All right, so they do this tribute song on stage. Now we cut to the bathroom of the cafe where Candace is staring at her reflection in the mirror. Then she grabs that vial out of her pocket and applies some of that red liquid onto her face and lips. All right. Now we're going to time cut to a few weeks later. I'm not sure how you're going to show this. I would just show maybe, I really don't know. I guess you could put it, if you really can't, if it's not understood, you could put you could superimpose like a few weeks later or 2 weeks later, just to get or just do a quick cut to, I don't know, one of those calendar type of transitions. You could have a poster on the wall with calendar and then like Leo's crossing out each one, and then we just get to a few weeks later. However, it really makes sense. I didn't really think about that until right now. But or you could just superimpose it. It doesn't matter. Or maybe the seasons change so it's understood. Either way. Maybe we're moving into the fall, so the leaves are falling off the trees, so people understand it's been a couple weeks or longer. All right, so we're in Leo's cafe in a back room a few weeks later as Shannon sleeps on an old hammock in a room the size of a small storage closet. Her guitar case and fancy clothes piled against the wall. She wakes and falls out of the hammock onto the floor. Shannon, shit. She grabs her guitar case and walks out. This is continuous. She walks into the bar area where Leo sleeps on top of the bar. Empty beer bottles all around him, peanut shells stuck to his face and beard, while Shannon makes coffee over a stovetop. She walks over and pokes him until he wakes, then pours the coffee into a mug and hands it to him as he wipes peanut shells off of himself. Leo, thanks. Shannon, this is the third time this week I found you asleep on the bar. You really need to take better care of yourself, Leo. He sips his coffee. Leo, grumpy. You stay here a few weeks and you think you're my mother now? All right, well, maybe that's what I put in there. Leo is telling the time span right there in that line of dialogue. You stay here a few weeks, so it's understood right there that Shannon had nowhere else to stay after David's death, so she just stayed at his bar for a couple weeks. All right, so that works too. But we're headed towards the winter time, so that does play a part in this storytelling. Shannon gets to New York in the summer, and I guess we're kind of in the fall right now and headed towards the winter in New York. All right, so Shannon grabs her guitar case and walks towards the front door. Leo, I'm kidding. You can stay as long as you need. Shannon, I know. Be back for my set later. She walks out as Leo clumsily walks after her. This is continuous outside of his cafe. Leo walks out the front door as Shannon is walking farther down the sidewalk, holding her guitar case. Leo, hey, might need you for the lunch rush. Shannon, when have you ever had a lunch rush? He shakes some more peanut shells off of his beard, then walks back inside. All right, so now we're following Shannon. She's headed towards the fountain. That's pretty major setting in this story so far. It's where she first met David, where he died. So bright sunlight is shining down as Shannon performs a song near the fountain. A group of folkies around her, so she's starting to gain a following. That's kind of what I wanted to show in this scene. Neil and Rose is among the crowd. I figured she would sing "In the Pines" by Leadbelly here, or part of that song, not the whole thing, but the ending of it. just as a tribute to, since David was singing that song. All right, so Shannon finishes up this performance very passionately as the crowd claps and drop change into her guitar case. Some flowers still remaining around the fountain, but they're quickly dying, or they're starting to wilt, which was a memorial to David. Shannon, to the crowd, thanks. Shannon wipes a tear from her eye as Neil and Rose walk over and comfort her. All right. At the same time, a little bit away from the fountain on a city street, Candace is watching this, puffing her cigar, leaning against the Cadillac, and she's watching Shannon converse with Neil and Rose. All right, same time, Neil and Rose at the fountain are walking away from Shannon. Shannon, come by tonight. Go on around 11 or so. So Neil and Rose walk away and nod as Shannon grabs a penny out of her guitar case, tosses it into the fountain, then packs up her guitar and walks away. She notices Candace puffing her cigar against the Cadillac and starts to walk over. As they get closer, Candace starts the conversation. Candace, smart to keep playing around here. They really seem to gravitate towards you. Shannon, I just need to play as much as I can right now. Keep myself steady. Candace reaches into the passenger seat of her Cadillac and hands her a stack of papers. Candace, congratulations. Shannon flips through the pages on the hood. Shannon, what is all this? Candace, 2-year contract for 2 albums and potentially 2 cross-country tours. Shannon's eyes light up as she quickly flips through more pages. Candace, don't worry about the details. It's all just extraneous legal nonsense. Extraneous? I forget how to say that word now. It's all just extraneous legal nonsense. Shannon, how did you manage this? Candace, I convinced enough of the right people what I see in you. Candace gets in her car and starts it up, then leans over and opens up the passenger seat. Candace, get in. That's not the only surprise. All right, now we're moving towards a rich part of the city again. We're driving by Shannon's high-rise apartment, and that would be like the setting shot, whatever it's called. You're setting up this scene. Now we're inside the apartment. Very, very swanky, very trendy place, whatever that means in the late 60s or 70s. That's what I mean when I say the set design and stuff would be very important for this to get that correct. How did artistic people live? The ones that were actually financially successful. We already experienced the life of the folkies in a rundown apartment, commune, whatever you come up with. But this is now the other side of the coin, a very rich late 60s, early 70s decor type of apartment. And Shannon explores the large open space with spotless, freshly painted white walls as Candace tosses her the keys. Candace, I already ordered some furniture for you. Should be here later today. So in this instance, it's kind of just a very clean, open space that hasn't been filled in yet. But we'll get to that other part later when we get to another apartment in this building. So it would need some time to kind of get the time period correct. All right, so Shannon gets tossed the keys and she stands speechless, then walks towards a fancy balcony door. This is continuous. Outside on the balcony, Shannon leans over the railing and gazes towards the beautiful scenery of the city, while Candace pours a bottle of champagne into 2 glasses. Candace, This building is mostly all artists like yourself. A little different than a typical artist commune, though, don't you think? She hands her a glass of champagne. Candace. Nothing wrong with enjoying the finer things. They tap glasses and drink. Shannon. This is all too much, Candace. Candace finishes her champagne, then smiles and walks back inside. Candace. Get situated. I'm on the top floor if you need me. And make sure you come by tonight for a little meet and greet. We drift higher above the building as Shannon leans against the railing, sipping her champagne. The bright blue sky quickly turning into, this is one of those transitions, like shot to shot. So the bright blue sky, well, I'm playing director here, I guess. This is how I would transition this, I guess. We go from the bright blue sky to the dark night. And now we are in outside Candace's high-rise apartment, where she's on the balcony alone, dressed in a fancy gown, sipping a glass of champagne. She grabs that vial again from her pocket and applies more of that red liquid to her eyelids, lips, and tongue. All right. Same time, inside of Candace's apartment. It's in the same building, if I didn't state that. That's why I wanted to have that transition. Candace's apartment would kind of be on maybe the top level of the high-rise building. So however you want to depict that, kind of showing the connection between Shannon and Candace. All right. Inside of the apartment, Shannon is entering the dimly lit room, which is packed with young trendsetters, models, and artists who dance to sexy jazz music, snort cocaine, and drink from other whiskey, champagne bottles, wine, whatever the fuck you want to put there. Shannon walks around nervously, not knowing anyone, smiling towards the beautiful strangers, then finally finds a face she recognizes as Toby sits on the floor, digging through a shelf of vinyl albums. Shannon. Hey. Toby rises, hugs, and kisses her. Toby. Hi, sweetie. Was hoping I would see you again. Let me get a look at you. She models for him, posing quite stiffly, as he hands her a fancy drink from a tray. Toby. Here. Looks like you need to catch up a bit. Shannon, thanks. He lifts up a record. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Get Out and Let Me Cry. Again, I'm just recommending these songs. It's a good party song, though. If you've never heard that, go listen to it. I think it fits the mood of this and the time period. So he puts on the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes record. I don't know, it could be a single or it could be the full record. These are the details that could get figured out later, if this song is actually able to be used or whatever. Then he slow dances with Shannon across the room during the slow intro. As the song picks up in pace and volume, the entire room explodes with energetic dancing and cheering. Toby, loudly over the music. What do you think? Shannon. I love it. Shannon finishes off her drink. Toby. Pace yourself a bit. You'll need your energy later. He kisses her on the cheek and dances towards a sexy female model who pours some cocaine onto her cleavage. He quickly snorts it off as Shannon dances with random young strangers. Getting more comfortable now. Now it's a little bit later in the night as Candace is smoking a cigar on the balcony all alone, a drink by her side on the railing, and she's staring out towards a beautiful city of lights. Shannon steps out onto the balcony and walks towards her, sipping a glass of champagne. Candace. How's the party? Shannon. Everyone seems to be having a good time. Candace. Good. You have to enjoy yourself. You deserve it. Shannon. Beautiful up here. Candace points out towards the city. Candace, most people out there tonight, they're just waiting to die. Same for mostly everyone in there, to be honest. They might not know it or want to admit it to themselves, but it's the truth. As long as they stay ignorant and fed, they believe they are a part of something, that their lives have purpose. She puffs her cigar and dangerously leans backwards over the railing, lifting her legs up like a gymnast. Candace, I can stomach the grandeur. It's the delusions of mediocrity that make me want to rip people's hearts out. She drops back to the balcony, swallows a pill taken out from her cleavage, then washes it down with her drink. Candace, I'm still not sure what to make of you. She grabs another pill and hands it to her, massages her neck from behind as Shannon swallows it. Candace, that's a good girl. Pours some of her drink into Shannon's mouth, holding her seductively from behind. So, you could make up whatever you want about what drug she just gave her. Maybe it's some kind of psychedelic, LSD. I don't think they had like ecstasy back then, so I don't know what the sex drug, what did people do before they had orgies and stuff? I don't fucking know. I feel like today it would just be ecstasy. MDMA, if that's still a thing, I don't know. And so we continue from that. And it's not like Candace actually drugged her. She willingly took it. So it wasn't like a Bill Cosby type of thing. No offense, Bill Cosby. All right, so now we are headed towards later that night as back inside Candace's high-rise apartment. Sexy jazz music plays as Shannon sits on the couch, the drug beginning to enter her bloodstream now, sending the room spinning around her in a psychedelic effect. So it's more likely to be LSD than anything else. A type of LSD in the 60s that seemed to be pretty popular in that time period. The beautiful people around Shannon begin making out and undressing each other as more enter the area, lay down on the carpet and do the same. So you could get real gothic with this, like red lighting, and make it seem like it's an orgy in hell, because their faces begin to morph into hideous demons and old wrinkled witches and all that cunty shit, and then flash back to normal. It's that effect again, only this time they're all naked having sex with each other. So I wanted to, if I was the one doing the cinematography and everything, this is my recommendation. I would have it very, very red lighting, almost like it's an orgy in hell. That's basically the only way I can explain it, really. It's an orgy in hell, because these are all witches and demons and other just fucked up creatures. I don't know what to even call them. Alright, so now all these people are having sex on the carpet around Shannon. Shannon freaks out and starts walking towards the front door to exit, but Candace blocks her way, levitates to her. Is it real, or is it just the LSD kicking in? And then Candace removes her clothing and leads Shannon back to the carpet, where the orgy gets more intense. Yeah, I'm not trying to make this a porn movie, so you don't have to show people fucking or anything. Of course, you can't do that. This movie would be rated R anyway, even without this orgy scene, this orgy in hell depiction of all these people fucking on the carpet and having group sex together. It would still be rated R because of the horror elements, the suicide elements, the death scenes, and some of the other gory stuff. You could do this in a way where it's not actually like a porno. Other movies have done the same. But it's just to show this type of experience of that free love era that was still probably going on in the upper crust of New York City and other places like that. So Shannon lays dead center on the carpet as the other bodies spread around her like tentacles. It's almost like they're all feeding off of her. That's the image I have if I would draw this picture. Shannon would be in the middle of this orgy as the other bodies kind of spread around her like tentacles, like an octopus or something. And she's kissing random beautiful faces as they also flash to the witches and the demons and feels random bodies. Candace turns Shannon over onto her stomach and gently kisses her back. You cut it there. So this is the last step of losing her innocence, I guess. Not to say she was a virgin at this point, but to have like crazy orgy sex with a bunch of witches and demons, even if she's not aware of it at the moment. This is Shannon completely going over to the dark side, I guess. You could, paint it in that simple type of explanation. She was a country girl. A few months ago, she just wanted to make music, and now she's having orgy sex with witches and demons and all these fucked up creatures. And you could film this in that way. It's really it's not a scene just to show nudity and sex. As a kid, I remember watching HBO and being like, staying up late at night and being like, seeing if in the beginning of the movie, HBO would show, this movie contains nudity, and you'd be like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna see some titties. That's not what my intention is with this orgy scene. It's just about the debauchery of that upper crust of a city like that, of an artistic kind of cult in a way. These are kind of fucked up people that do witchcraft and shit like that. So I think it fits. I think it's a pretty vital scene. So if people were like, you can't put an orgy scene, there's plenty of movies that did similar things like that. I don't think it's that radical if you film it correctly. It's more about the horror and the witchcraft element than the sexuality. But all of that's related as well. All right. Because one more thing. One of the main themes of this script is that when people age and get into their 70s, 80s, and beyond, and they approach death, yeah, some of those people become like vampires, feeding off the young. And that's also a theme of this, similar to how an A&R person or a record executive at a record label, and I'm just thinking of the major record labels, not the indie stuff that kind of goes against the grain, but, some of those images that you have in mind of these agents and talent scouts that kind of suck the life out of the artist. And that might be the main theme of this entire movie. All right, hold on one second. Let me catch up with this. All right, continuing. We just had the orgy scene with the demons and witches and all that crazy shit. Okay, we're still in the apartment. It's a few hours later. The orgy's way over. And Shannon is waking up on the couch in the middle of the night. She's kind of confused. I guess whatever drugs she was on has weared off, and she's passing a few half-naked people sleeping around her as she explores the apartment. She moves down a hallway and walks through darkness towards a door, and then slowly turns the handle. She walks into this room, which is Candace's office, and she barely can see, but she gazes towards the wall where there's framed gold records and album covers of young men and women of almost every musical genre. So, soul music, folk music, country, Candace doesn't discriminate. She loves, any artist that can make her, give her what she needs in life. So all kinds of different artists are on the wall, gold records and stuff like that. Shannon explores further and finds a stack of single 45 RPM records on a desk and flips through the album covers. She lifts one up and views David Rice, What the Devil Can't Buy. So it's one of those. I used to buy them too. When I went to estate sales, you would find 45s, and the ones that still had the sleeve with the picture, those were always kind of cool to buy because you don't find that too often. Most of the time, you just find the records without the sleeve with the picture on it. So this one would show David Rice, what's his full name, from years ago when he was starting out as an artist. And it was his single, What the Devil Can't Buy, which was the song he played in the beginning, and then Shannon played or Neil and Rose played later at the bar. So I guess it's like his most popular song from his short career. And it's a photo of David as a fresh-faced beginning stages of his career on the cover of this record, or on the sleeve at least. And he's in like a cowboy outfit. All right. So Shannon is looking at this record in kind of disbelief because he never really showed it to her. As a shadowy figure approaches behind her and grabs the record. Shannon jumps in fright, then turns to find Candace, who caresses David's face on the cover. Candace. Forgot I even had this one in here. He must have been even younger than you. What a waste. She drops the record back onto the desk and hugs her around the waist from behind. Candace. Better get some sleep. Big day ahead. Shannon stares at David's record as Candace walks away. End the scene there. I think this scene's important. It shows a different side of David, and he could have, I guess, gone down that road, but for some reason he just decided to break out of his contract. Even though this isn't explicitly stated, it's kind of explored in a conversation they have in the beginning, because he didn't want to be owned by anybody, which is another theme of this as a horror film and as a look at the music industry. All right, continuing, we go to the next day at a recording studio now. Recording studio with a fancy production booth. Shannon is singing into the hanging mic while wearing headphones, accompanied by two female backup singers for harmonies. And this is when they sing my original song number 5 for this movie. It's called Seen Angels Fall. I actually wrote this song a long time ago. It was for my album, what's it called? On Sundays I Like to Play God. It was like a tribute to Siamese Dream with all these shoegaze inspired songs, heavy guitar stuff. And when I wrote this screenplay, I went back to that song and I turned it into an acoustic ballad because it works as an acoustic ballad too. I actually did this song on my Anatomy of a Song series, if you want to look it up, on my YouTube channel and on my Substack too. I talked about this and I performed the song, so I'll share that on this post if you want to check that out. It's probably my favorite one of all the songs I wrote for this movie, whether I knew about it at the time or not. So it sounds pretty cool as an acoustic type of folk song, even though I wrote it as a heavy guitar distortion shoegaze song. All right, so Shannon is performing that song as Candace puffs a cigar in the closed booth next to the engineer Rick, 50s, while Shannon sings the last line. Rick stops the reel to reel and gives a thumbs up towards Shannon. Rick. Solid take, ladies. Let's take a break and try it again in a few. Shannon smiles towards the backup singers as they take off their headphones and light up cigarettes. Female backup singer 1. You really write this song yourself, honey? Shannon. Yeah, why do you ask? Female backup singer 1. Oh, nothing bad. It's just, I'm happy to finally get the chance to sing some real songs for a change. Female backup singer 2. And not that cookie cutter Partridge Family copycat bullshit they usually toss our way. Shannon. Thanks. I really do try to put myself into every song I write. The backup singers walk towards the door, smoking their cigs. Female backup singer 2. Whatever your process is, don't go changing it for anyone. You got a strong, unique voice to share with the world. Keep it fresh and full of your truth, and you'll do just fine. I might have to edit this. It's a little bit unrealistic, this type of dialogue, but you get the gist of what this is supposed to be. Shannon is still that independent-minded singer-songwriter, and that's kind of unfamiliar territory in a lot of cookie-cutter type of Partridge Family songs of that era. Most of the time, if you're trying to sell music to a radio station or to the public, you don't want political songs, you don't want controversy, you don't want anything to do with death or morbidity. You want to reach people, and in a 3-minute song on the radio, you want to be able to sell that message that they need to hear this song to get their dopamine. Kind of like what social media does today. It's a good comparison. Instagram and Facebook and all the other ones, they control people's dopamine kind of the same way, keep you coming back. I got addicted to Instagram twice, and this time I'm taking 2-week breaks from Instagram because it's kind of stupid anyway, and it becomes all about half-naked women and porn, which is another kind of comparison to this type of story. Instagram was cool for me in the beginning, and then it just became really fucking stupid, like some political mind game. And so I banned myself from it for 2 weeks, and I just did the same thing last Saturday. So I'll probably go on again next Saturday just to fuck around with it for a little bit. But that's kind of the same thing. In that era, in the late 60s or any time period, in the 40s and 50s, you try being a black artist and getting a song on the radio to white America. Like, it just wouldn't happen unless, I don't know what example to give, because I'm not that generation. So I'm just talking about what I hear people talk about on podcasts and documentaries and shit. I don't think it was like that everywhere, but a lot of times, even Michael Jackson, his music videos were not going to be put on MTV in the beginning because they were worried about advertising down south. We don't want no black artists on MTV. Not to criticize the South, but I'm sure it was like that in some places back then. And maybe still is. Not just in the South, anywhere. And yeah, that's fucking weird. That's in the 80s too. Like, that's not that long ago. So all of that shit is just really, really weird to learn about. Michael Jackson in the 80s was like such a non-threatening character. He was like him and Quincy Jones and their shit. It was just wholesome kind of songs, even if they were kind of disco. But even John Denver, I spoke about before, Rocky Mountain High, which is like the most Christian loving nature song ever. Some radio stations wouldn't play it because they thought it was about drugs. You say the word high, Rocky Mountain High, they think it's about smoking marijuana or something. Or John Lennon, Imagine. I'm sure certain radio stations weren't playing that because it's like a communist. What's he doing? He's trying to unite the world together. I don't know. I'm using a southern accent again. Apologies. I don't mean to do that whenever I speak of an ignorant worldview. I don't mean to use a southern accent, but it just comes out like that. I don't know what other accent to use, like a Russian accent or Italian accent. I don't fucking know. That's my own prejudice, I guess. All right, moving on. We're still in the recording studio, but in a different one now. As Shannon walks down the hallway drinking a mug of tea, and she's walking past the other studio with the door partially open. And she's watching Candace as Candace lights a cigar inside, standing next to a sturdy, tall, young male singer who's wearing headphones. Candace, will you just get it over with already? Young male singer. This isn't even my damn song, Candace. Candace, for fuck's sake, make it your own then. I need this shit taken care of today. He violently slams his headphones down. Young male singer. Stop trying to direct my artistic vision. She grabs him violently by the hair and pushes him against the back wall. He can't break free from her like he was suddenly under paralysis as she stares him down and scratches his cheek with her fingernail, hard enough to draw a little blood. Candace whispering menacingly, fuck your artistic vision. There's a food chain around here. She paints an inverted cross onto his forehead using his blood, then releases him. Candace, don't forget where you stand. Shannon watches the scene hidden behind the door, then quickly sneaks away. So again, there is a reason for that short scene with with Shannon and the backup singers. That short little scene that I didn't really like the dialogue, but the point of it is necessary to show that dichotomy. Shannon is still performing her own songs that she feels has artistic integrity and a personal connection to herself. She's not just being fed country standards or a song that's so, I don't know, what am I thinking of? Some 60s doo-wop song or, I don't know, I can't really think right now of the song I'm thinking of. Or like, the song I have in my head is like I called the witch doctor and this is what she said. Or what he said, I don't even know how that song goes. Ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, bing, bang, bang. You know that stupid. Is that a Halloween song? I don't even know. But I feel like in that era, the 50s and 60s, even this is 1969. This movie is taking place in 1969. So there's still a little bit of that. There's still the Partridge Family, the Brady Bunch, which are fine programs, but they're so cheesy. Maybe the Monkees too. You could put the Monkees in there. I think some people would combat that and say the Monkees were actually writing good songs. I don't really know. I just remember like watching their show on Nickelodeon as like really, really small kid. So maybe that kind of ruined their artistic integrity, the Monkees, because they had like a comedy show to go along with their music. But they do have some good songs. I won't criticize them that harshly. They do have good songs. Last Train to Clarksville, that's good. And Daydream Believers, I think that was in Shrek. That kind of get resurrected. So I'm not shitting on the Monkees. I think what they were a boy band. And then they wanted to portray this as like another Beatles because the Beatles made billions of dollars. And the Beatles made movies and shit, so they're like, let's do it with these guys. Are they looked at, like back then, were they looked at as like the B-team Beatles? I don't know. I really don't have enough knowledge of how people felt about the Monkees, but that's a good example, I think. Maybe they did have, well, even the Partridge Family, right, had like what the main guy, he released records. I can't think of his name. Something Cassidy, maybe. And it's just a pretty face. Like, I don't want to criticize the dude. I don't know his music. But if he was 300 pounds and he had warts and zits all over his face, he probably would never be an actor and he'd never be a lead singer. Like, that's just how it is in the entertainment business. I brought that up before because sexuality sells, whether on any kind of advertising or any kind of entertainment business. Yeah, even the news. How many unattractive news anchors do you see on CNN or Fox News? It's a part of the business. I think there's a Nicole Kidman movie where they talk about Rupert Murdoch or Fox News and how they kind of had that, you have to be blonde with a nice body to be on Fox News. And I'm sure the other ones do it too. MSNBC, CNN. You're not going to see like disgusting looking people because these people are actors. The news hosts are very much actors. They have to keep people's attention, whether it's local news or cable news. So that's a big theme throughout this story. As we continue, and so far, even throughout this, that's come up a couple times. All right, we're on page 51. We just got done with the recording studio scenes. Shannon is watching Candace kind of go pussy power and pretty much just grab this guy by the hair and scare the fucking bejesus out of him. So she's starting to question things. You could also put that in there as a motivation for those scenes. Now we're moving to another day, maybe a couple days later, or it could be the same day. Who the fuck knows? It doesn't really matter. We're on a talk show set as three camera operators point their cameras towards a hip late 1960s designed stage, with all that kind of faux psychedelic decor, I guess. Shannon is performing her original ballad, Seen Angels Fall, to the live studio audience. Stunned faces in the audience watch her as she sings the last few lines of the song while lightly picking her guitar. The talk show host, male in his 40s, walks next to her as she finishes. So this is another performance of that same song. It doesn't have to be a 3-4 minute scene. You could do a 30-second. This is the end of her performance as the studio audience watches her, and it's just a different experience because that's what they did back then, right? Like, I guess it still happens now on KEXP and other YouTube channels. If a record label wants to promote an artist, they send them to radio stations and talk show hosts or talk shows or other kind of music podcast, Apple Radio. That's how it's always been. You have to market these people, give them publicity. It's just the way it is. That's the approach of DIY that's very difficult to obtain. If you don't have people having your back, networking you, marketing you, putting you out there, and influencers that are used to that effect in the same kind of light. But back in the 60s, the only thing that existed was radio and television. What else was there to promote someone? Magazines, I guess, newspapers in a way. But to get that first bit of attention of a new artist, I'm sure it would be something similar to this. You want to get radio play, you want to be on Dick Clark, you want to be on Soul Train later on, I guess. But, I think in the UK it's Top of the Pops or something. So you got to picture it as one of those type of shows. So the audience is obviously kind of intrigued by Shannon. Maybe she's even dressed in like that farm girl outfit. I don't know. Somebody else could kind of handle that. I don't know. I didn't really say what she would be wearing. I don't think I did. All right, so the talk show host now approaches her as she finishes her song. Miss Shannon Breeze. She bows to the audience humbly, and they give her a standing ovation. Talk show host. Thank you, Shannon. That was sensational. I'm trying to do my talk show host voice. Candace puffs her cigar from the shadows off the stage as he leads Candace to a sofa and sits behind his desk. So now it's the interview portion of the show. The talk show host begins the dialogue. Now, I hear you're pretty new to the city, is that right? Shannon. Yeah, still kind of getting used to everything around here, but I really do love it. The city definitely makes you feel right at home. Talk show host. And your debut album is about to hit the shelves soon? Shannon. Can't wait. We've all been working really hard on it. He motions towards the audience. Talk show host. How many of you out there are going to buy Shannon's album? The audience cheers loudly as Shannon blushes. Talk show host. Well, I think you made some new fans here today, Shannon, including yours truly. Is it also true that you write all your own songs? Shannon. That's true. I think you need to really pour your heart and soul into the music to really connect. He rudely cuts her off as he grabs an album off a side table. Talk show host. We actually have the very first press of your debut album right here. He holds up the record, introducing Miss Shannon Breeze, with a photo of her in her sexy farm girl outfit from Toby's prior photo shoot. She's seeing it for the first time as well, and tries to force a smile through her shock. Talk show host. I'm sure a lot of young boys across the country will be flocking to the stores this week for this. The audience laughs as his face quickly morphs into an absolutely monstrous demonic creature, then quickly returns to normal. So I picture this guy, he's also like a demon in disguise. He's not a major character, but it's just showing that you never know who people are underneath. That's just another type of metaphor for that, I guess, or symbolic moment. So I kind of see it like it's a close-up of his face. He's all sweaty and disgusting. And just like a half second, his normal face will turn into some fucked up demon creature. I'm going to have to go through like demonic books and look at how some demons are crafted, how their faces look, to give me some ideas and shit. But I'm not the one designing the actual, costumes and stuff, or doing the CGI. So I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I see. All right, so the talk show host looks to the crowd one more time and says, "Let's hear it one last time for Miss Shannon Breeze." Shannon tries to hide her embarrassment as the audience hoots and cheers, while Candace still puffs her cigar from the shadows with the smoke covering her face. All right, how far am I in this? I'm on page 53 now, and I'm about an hour into this. I'll try to get to page maybe 60 if I don't do as much commentary. All right, now we're moving to that uptown fancy bar from before. It's nighttime as Shannon sits at the bar alone, staring down into her drink as Candace walks in, takes a seat next to her, and motions to the bartender, who quickly brings her a martini. Candace. You really put the charm on Tom. He was already asking to book you again after this tour is over. Shannon. You didn't even ask me about the album cover, Candace. I would have never given permission. Candace. Would you stop acting so damn prude? I thought we all moved past this. She lights up a cigar. Shannon. That's my name on the cover. I need to have a say. Candace. I can't be pestering you over every little detail. You have no idea how many decisions I have to make on any given day. They drink as the tension builds. Candace, you think Elvis is proud of all his album covers? He doesn't bother with all that nonsense because he knows the business. Shannon, I'm not trying to be Elvis. I'm not trying to be anyone. I don't mean to sound ungrateful here, but it's just, I don't even know what I'm trying to fucking say anymore. Candace, you just need some sleep. First TV appearance can really drain you. Candace walks to the front door, opens it, then gazes towards Shannon through the window reflection. Candace, we can talk about the tour tomorrow. Shannon finishes her drink at the bar, then motions to the bartender for another. Quickly, now we're going to transition to Shannon's apartment bedroom later that night as Shannon is sleeping peacefully, stretched out on her bed with an empty bottle of wine next to her as a gentle breeze flows from the open balcony door. So right now it's the fall. Maybe it's a little bit colder, but she would still have the balcony door open, or she's just in a bad state. You can justify it like that. She's drunk and she left the door open for whatever reason. Now, this is another kind of spooky scene. Candace's old, withered face suddenly flashes from the darkness as she slowly levitates over Shannon's sleeping body. Candace, who's now completely, before it was always like a quick flash, but this is when you first see Candace in her withered, hag state. And you can really notice her true appearance at this point as she's levitating over the sleeping Shannon. She licks Shannon's elbow down to her arm with her disgusting tongue and then gently scratches her neck, causing a small stream of blood to flow out, which we've seen her do before to other people. But now you really get to see Candace in her true disgusting appearance without all the smoke and mirrors. So it is a good, vital scene here. Because up till now, you've only seen flashes of her, but now you get maybe a minute to really embrace the horrific nature of this witchy character. All right. This is the next morning. We're still in the Shannon's apartment. She's in the bathroom as she steps out of the shower. She's covering herself with a towel, staring at her reflection in the mirror. And she notices dark bags under her eyes and a balding patch of hair. And she watches the strands of hair fall down into the sink. She stares back at her reflection as Candace's withered face flashes. So she's looking in the mirror at her own face, and then Candace's face flashes as her reflection. Then quickly changes back to her as she blinks in shock. Now, continuous, she's moving into her bedroom with the towel wrapped around her. She picks up her acoustic guitar, still that same one that she brought from the country with her, and she finger picks a new song, struggling to play along correctly as her fingers are bleeding on the guitar strings. So, and the blood is dripping down onto the wood of her guitar. Her usual calluses gone. If you play guitar, you realize if you don't play for a while, you lose those calluses that you build up. I haven't played my guitar in 7, 8, 9 months now because of other circumstances. I know if I pick up my guitar now, I'd still be able to play it, but it's going to take maybe a couple weeks to get back to my usual fingers, because you lose your calluses, your fingers will hurt. So for some reason, this morning, because of what happened the prior night with Candace, now Shannon is losing her ability to play guitar in a way. So she wipes the blood off the guitar with her towel, puts the guitar away, curls up on the bed, and covers herself head to toe with the blanket. So she's kind of realizing something's weird, but she just wants to go back to sleep. All right. Where are we now? So that was the daytime. It's the same day. She sleeps the whole day. So you can kind of do a time lapse there, show her in bed, and fast forward it as she's kind of sleeping all day. Maybe she wakes up and drinks some of the wine and goes back to sleep. So you could have a kind of a cool transition there, showing all she did all day was just sleep in bed. She's very depressed, unmotivated, not her usual motivated self, ambitious self that we saw before. So now it's nighttime and Shannon gets out of bed and she walks over to the balcony. She's staring towards a dark sky with no stars. As she said before, do you ever get to see the stars in the city? Because usually in the city, you don't get to see the stars because all of the other light pollution. She's writing some lyrics into her notebook as she leans against the railing. And then she quickly crosses out whatever lines she was writing in frustration. She tosses her notebook off the balcony and watches it fall to the sidewalk. She then lights a cigar, puffs it in a similar fashion as Candace, and gazes below. All right. So you can kind of see what I'm trying to do there, not very subtly. She's becoming like Candace. Candace is becoming her. They're kind of merging together as one like that because of whatever witchy shit that Candace has done. We're going to start to ramp up now. From that scene, that's like Shannon's character becoming somebody else that she doesn't recognize. Now she's going on tour. And during this tour, I would just film it as a montage. I feel like Seeing Angels Fall is the song of this movie. That would be the song that kind of plays during this montage. That's her hit song. That's the song that she kind of, she played it in the recording studio. She played it on the talk show. And now she's on tour and she's just playing that song over and over and over again. It's her hit single. You could call it that, yeah. All right, so let's begin this montage. It's not that long. It's actually a little bit longer than my usual montages, but maybe it'll be about a 3 to 4 minute scene. We begin the montage at a dive bar. I just call it dive bar number 1 at nighttime. And we're drifting through the sparse, inattentive crowd as Shannon performs Seeing Angels Fall on stage with a full backing band all dressed in matching country outfits. So it doesn't matter where this is. I'm not putting like what city they're in at this time, but you could show that in different ways, whether on the club sign or the type of people in the crowd. I didn't put that much detail into this yet. All right, the second part of this montage is at a biker bar where Shannon is also performing on stage. See, it's one of those things where the song Seeing Angels Fall is playing and she's on stage with her band as the song plays in the background, but they're performing it on stage as well. Or actually, you don't know what they're performing. They're just on stage performing something as Seeing Angels Fall plays throughout this montage. So they're at a biker bar, then they go to a country festival outside. They're playing in front of a larger crowd of country people. Now we go to Neil's apartment back in New York. Rose is placing a damp rag onto his forehead as he coughs and sweats in bed. All right, so we go back and visit Neil for a hot second to see Rose is helping him sit up as he turns and vomits into a bucket on the floor. Now we're going to a fancy auditorium again. We're following Shannon and her band as they perform to a sold-out audience in a larger venue this time. So she's becoming more popular as this montage goes, and how this tour is going. She's becoming more of a household name. Now we go to a record store where Shannon is viewing her album cover in the store window. Her picture of a sexy farm girl that's on the album cover. And then she lights a cigarette, walking away dejected. I didn't write this in the script, but yeah, she's starting to age. Maybe some gray hairs, maybe some wrinkles. She's starting to look more and more unlike herself. And she's aging like at a very rapid pace. All right, now we're going to a church. Outside of a church back in New York City, Rose and Neil, they're holding hands in front of a bulletin board at the back entrance, and they're reading a pamphlet that says Narcotics Anonymous, you are not alone. So Neil is obviously trying to clean up his drug addiction. All right, now we're back with Shannon. She's alone in a dressing room, and you really see it in this one. She looks at herself in the mirror, and her thinning white hair and her skin looks extra wrinkled. She stretches the bags under her eyes, and then she looks kind of, really depressed in this. And then she grabs a bottle of wine and starts drinking. All right, now we're back at Leo's Cafe at nighttime as Neil and Rose are performing together on stage in front of a nearly empty room while Leo naps behind the bar. Now we are going to go back to Shannon's storyline. She's inside a record store in the daytime, and she's signing autographs onto her album cover to her adoring fans, trying her best, to smile and look happy. Now we are back. Where are we? We're at outside a recording studio where the young male singer from before, the one that Candace was beating his ass inside the recording studio. That same guy, he's walking out the front entrance and lighting a cigarette as the full moon shines and Candace watches, hidden in the shadows. That same night, but in a different location, dive bar number 2, Shannon is performing more of her song with the band as a brawl breaks out by the bar between some riotous drunks. So it's not the best concert that night. All right, now we move towards a cowboy dive bar later, maybe a couple nights later, different location on tour. Shannon is appearing even more worn out and disheveled, and she's performing on stage as she stares towards the audience in a daze. Like at this point, she's been playing the same songs like maybe 20 different times, 30 different locations, whatever it is at this point. She's touring the country, and she probably feels more like a robot at this point. As I've heard artists say that they feel like puppets, just performing the same shit. It's got to kind of grate at you after a while, even though it's what you love to do. Like it's a weird type of thing. Almost like when a band tries to play a new song and the fans are like, no, we just want to hear your one hit song over and over again. Maybe she's starting to feel like that. She's losing the magic, the inspiration of what the music was supposed to give her. All right, so now we're moving from that in back to New York in an alley at nighttime. We're following that male singer again, the young male singer, as he's walking through the dark alley, as three shadowy figures creep after him, dressed in old-fashioned plague doctor masks. You know, those long noses during the Black Plague and shit. The doctors would wear those long fucking creepy masks. The young man turns around, notices them, and runs away until another masked figure blocks his path and pushes him down. He gazes up in fright as these four mysterious figures stab him with ancient weapons, and I would even say it's cooler if they just stab him with their noses, almost like they're birds pecking his guts out. I think that would be much more horrific. For some reason, I put these four mysterious figures stab him with ancient psi weapons, like Raphael from the Ninja Turtles. I don't know why I was going that direction. That could work too, but I think it's creepier if this guy is just laying in the alley and these four creatures are just pecking at him with their noses, like their masks are really sharp knives and they can peck his guts out like that. I think that's a better way to represent this. All right, so that's really the second death scene. We've seen David die, and we've seen this guy die. We don't get to know this guy, so it's probably not much of a connection to him at all. He just had that one short scene where he was arguing with Candace about what song he wanted to record. That's all we know about him. I don't think you have to build a story for this guy. It would just be filler at that point. The audience isn't stupid. You could put scenes here where it's like Shannon meets this guy and they go for a cup of coffee and he's warning her about the underbelly of Candace and all these other record executives. Like, sure, you could put that in there. To me, it's a filler scene. You're saying the audience can't figure it out by themselves. Like, and anyway, it's pretty fucking obvious. Like, you just saw Candace floating over her body as like a ancient witch figure, sucking her blood and all this shit. So I don't think you need to build a backstory for this guy. He's just another one of her victims. So anyway, we're going to end this montage now. We're back in the recording studio where Candace is laying on the couch, staring up towards a large mirror on the ceiling. Now we are one final little scene on this montage where Shannon is performing her song on stage with her band. As the audience kind of fades into this blinding white light in her perception. Maybe she's having like an acid flashback, but things are getting weird now. So I figured I'd end the montage with like this blinding white light that is all Shannon sees as she's looking out to the crowd. That's the end of the montage. If it's not as clear yet, throughout this montage, Seen Angels Fall would play, like the studio version. And you would just go through all these scenes like a music video as that song plays in its entirety pretty much. All right, I'm going to stop it here. I got about almost 20 pages left. I am on page, where was I? I'm on page 57. I just ended the tour montage. So, yeah, it's about 20 pages left. So I'll continue this later today. Again, I did edit this script like a lot. I know it sounds like I'm going through this and I'm noticing things that I want to change. Basically because I haven't read this in years now. It's probably been a year or two since I read this script. And of course, I'm going to notice things that I want to include based on new ideas in my head, and maybe other movies I've seen since then. So it's not that I didn't put a lot of effort and time into this script. These characters, I really tried to mold it, and you can hear how I'm talking about this. I'm open to interpretation, open, very open to other people's perceptions of how they want to approach a story like this. All the main themes are out there. I'm not trying to hide anything. It's a very psychological horror type of film, but the underlying themes are really about the music industry and how artists are kind of used and abused at times. You could look at that visual arts the same way. I don't know that guy Basquiat. I don't know his story, but it seems like he was that Kurt Cobain type of tortured artist. And maybe Kurt Cobain was a little different. He seemed like he was a pretty well adjusted dude who had a sense of humor about shit. But also, yeah, when he killed himself, he seemed to be like remembered as this tortured artistic soul who led the new generation of grunge and true music fans. Like, there's always this mystique around people like that take their lives, or Jimi Hendrix, overdose, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison. You could say Tupac, right? I don't know how old Tupac was when he died, but there's a mystique around him. Did he really die? Is he Machiavelli? All that shit. Even the Beatles had that shit. People thought Paul McCartney died and that they found somebody new to replace him that looked like him. All this weird shit. John Lennon, even though he didn't, he was assassinated by someone. But everyone, and in a way, it's a way to make money off these people. Kurt Cobain was remembered as this tortured genius of grunge, and in his limited discography of only 3 albums really: Bleach, Nevermind, In Utero. And I don't know what Incesticide is. What is it, like B-sides and other shit? I don't know. I still don't really know what that album is. I don't think it's just a real studio album. Maybe it's just other songs that never got used. But yeah, of course, you want to, the people who own the rights to Nirvana's music, I don't know who does, the record company, they still want to make money off this guy after his death. Of course. Who else could I really think of? Well, Marvin Gaye, right? Didn't he have a tragic thing where his dad killed him or some shit? Or was that Marvin Gaye or was that Sam Cooke? I think that was Sam Cooke. Or Sam Cooke had a different story too. Somebody killed him in like a hotel lobby or some shit like that. I remember watching a documentary about it. Really fucked up story. So you can go into any genre of music and find stories like that. Like, oh, these artists, they must all be tortured souls who, they're so poetic and shit like that. It gets really cliched, but it's just a way to make money off of it, to make money off the legacy. Recently, right, it was like, well, I don't know how that part of it went along, but you can see it's not always a bad thing, I guess. Like Chris Cornell, his suicide. I don't know if Soundgarden still plays or makes new stuff. But I'm trying to think of some of the more recent ones, like the guy from Linkin Park. I think they still have a band and they still make music. And Sublime, his son is like taking over the band now. It's kind of weird when you look at legacies like that. Maybe one day Kurt Cobain's daughter will play some music. Who the fuck knows? Maybe she is. I don't follow these things. But I was coming from it more at the angle of, and you'll see as I finish the story in the next part, I'll talk more about that. I don't want to, for people who haven't read the screenplay, which is everyone, you probably don't want me to ruin the entire story, even though you kind of know where it's going at this point. I think the audience at this point of the movie would realize the type of trajectory that Shannon's life is on right now. They won't know exactly how it's going to end, but they'll have a better idea because they know similar stories like this. I'll leave it like that, I guess, to keep it kind of vague and mysterious. I usually say that, these aren't supposed to be taken that seriously, but this story might be one of the more serious ones because of these themes that I'm talking about. I feel like, art can be used up. An artist in relation to people who are there to make money off of them. Once you stop making money, these people aren't going to want anything to do with you. That's why the DIY thing is so important. That's why your reputation is so important. The politics of any kind of a public figure is crucial because people will quickly, just as quickly as people fell in love with an artist or an actor, once something bad happens, and that was all over the place during the Me Too shit and around that time and the political correctness that happened. It's like a witch hunt. It's a reverse kind of witch hunt in a way. And once the public sours on someone, you notice that it just as quickly as you become famous, you become a pariah, or not a pariah, you become just as financially viable as an insect. So it's interesting, the power of the media to present public or to promote public perception, whether it's based on truth or not. Like I mentioned Bill Cosby earlier. What do I really know about that story? I know what people talk about on the news. Was I there to see Bill Cosby drug people? No. Is there actual video evidence and stuff? No, I don't think so. Excuse me. So, am I wrong for speaking of Bill Cosby like that? Because I don't know the guy. I've never spoken to him. Did he ever admit guilt? I didn't follow the trial that much. But you could say the same thing, the Michael Jackson stuff. Joe Paterno, when he got his name put through the shit because of all that Penn State scandal with the pedophile coach. You could look at all these people. Some of them, I'm sure, are justified. But am I right to speak about this stuff? I don't know Bill Cosby, and I'm criticizing him because the media, at least when I used to watch the news and go on Twitter more often back then, that was in my face. Bill Cosby drugged 400 women in his life and took advantage of these women after he drugged them. I'm believing that because the media is saying it. The Epstein shit. Like, I don't follow this stuff because it is kind of disgusting. It's very disgusting. But I hear about it because, random passing, it's whatever. It's on the news, it's on this. It's hard not to be aware of it, at least. I'm not following it like, oh, what's new with the Epstein case? I'm so into this. It becomes another form of pornography in a way. People who get obsessed with stuff like that. It's almost like the Alex Jones stuff with the Bohemian Grove, which I used to watch stupid videos on that shit. Moloch. But the good thing is, because I was into that conspiracy shit, because that's freaky as fuck. If people in power actually got together in the woods and prayed to an owl, oh, our owl god Moloch, please give us more babies to eat. Like, if people were really like that, whatever, it's pretty crazy to think about. But because I was into that conspiracy shit back in the day when I was in my 20s and 30s, going through stupid shit like that, the same reason people read tabloids about aliens having sex with Elizabeth Taylor and giving birth to to aliens and all this fucking stupid shit. It's the same reason people will buy a tabloid magazine as they wait in a grocery store, because whatever, it's just so stupid. The same reason I'm watching YouTube videos about Bohemian Grove, undercover, exposed, the Illuminati, and all that crazy shit. And because I was into that at some point in my life, I was able to maybe put that into writing like this. So there are some positives. The 5G conspiracy, brainwashing, FEMA camps, all this crazy shit. The good thing that came out of those type of rabbit holes is stories like that, like this that I've written. Now, I'm not saying this is a conspiracy-filled type of story, but it's dealing with witchcraft and the occult and other themes like that, demonic type of entities. And yeah, you notice that in culture, whether it's not as blatant as a witch sucking the blood out of people to stay young and stuff and themes like that. But you look at these pharmaceutical commercials, you look at some of the government-led propaganda, not just in America, but other countries, and you can't help but think it's some kind of demonic shit, because it gets real dark, man. So a lot of that stuff, yeah, I'm not recommending going down these rabbit holes to people, whether it's 9/11 conspiracy or what else was popular back in my 20s. I was more into the conspiracy shit in my 20s. Well, that was the biggest one. 9/11 conspiracy, inside job shit. And then, what else? I don't know. I can't think of anything else. Just the zeitgeist movies, and I was getting into how did religions form, and every religion is really based on the Egyptian sun god, and you could look at all these resurrection stories and flood stories that were in these Hindu books and these ancient religions, and really it's just a bridging as you get from paganism to Catholicism and all these other branches. So I was into that stuff. Not so much ancient aliens. I didn't really get into that too much, but vaguely into that. Ancient civilizations with the Graham Hancock stuff. Probably learned that on the Joe Rogan podcast. Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson stuff. But that's more of the stuff I was into maybe in the past few years. So my brain is always kind of attracted to conspiracy stuff, whether it's just nonsense or just more interesting stuff about archaeology, like I'm playing Indiana Jones in my head. So yeah, it's cool. I feel it, even if these things are a waste of time, and yeah, really they are a waste of time. I'm not gonna lie. Even listening to Graham Hancock for 3 hours on Joe Rogan, and I probably re-listen to these because it's just really interesting to me. I don't know if there was ancient civilizations that got covered up in history, and what Graham Hancock says is human beings are suffering from this amnesia or whatever that we're not aware of our ancient bloodlines or these civilizations that came before us and got fucked up and destroyed in other ways. It's the same. All right, I'm going to end this here because I'm over an hour and a half. I wrote a screenplay about like what was it called? Rinse and Repeat Part 1, I think. And it was my attempt to write this script with no dialogue, but eventually I kind of made up a language for these tribal people. And it's similar to the Planet of the Apes, where they think they're on a distant planet, but really they are on Earth after we fucked their Earth up and killed each other off or whatever. Yeah, Planet of the Apes is I probably only watched it once or twice, but I would still put it up there as one of the most influential movies on me because it's just such a weird fucking story. It's basically just a Twilight Zone episode, but it was made into a movie. It's basically just a Twilight Zone episode, but it's just really well done. And I kind of wrote a script like that where you follow these tribal people around. You think they're cave people because they're primitive, but they're really our ancestors. Because in this version that I created in this story, humanity kills each other off with a nuclear war or some other natural climate events wash us out with the flood or whatever the fuck happens. And the surviving few of our bloodline over the centuries, they would forget about us. They would forget about how we lived. They would forget about the Bible. They would forget about the internet and countries. All that shit would just disappear if we eventually have some nuclear war and humanity is pretty much fucked up at that time, at that point, and maybe only a few thousand human beings survive. Now, how do you think that would go at that point? Will they recreate the same society as we live in now? Or would they lose their history and their heritage, their connection to this paradigm and create something new? Or in my story, they just devolve over the generations. They devolve back to primitive cave dwellers. They forget about language. They don't have books to look at anymore. They don't know how to read or write. They don't know music. They have to reinvent all this shit again as a different simulation. Like, isn't that kind of what the Matrix was? Like, the programmers kept trying to develop new matrices to keep people appeased, and eventually they settled on this one with war and all this conflict because it made it look more real or whatever. It kept people more interested and it looked more realistic. When they tried to give people a perfect utopia, for some reason it didn't work. I forget the logic of the Matrix or the illogic of it. I don't remember it. So that was kind of a story I wrote. One of my episodes that I'll talk about later when I get into that. But I wanted to mention that because, yeah, it is kind of like that. There's a relation to this story because of the conspiracy stuff I was talking about. The way my brain will handle a plot line like this, that it's basically as simple as you can get. A young woman from the country moves to New York in the 60s to pursue her career in music. I think that was my log line. But then she encounters, nefarious elements of the music industry. You could write this story without the witchcraft stuff, without the demonic stuff. You could write it just as the record industry takes advantage of this woman and she turns to drugs and alcohol. You don't need to put that extra layer of that Illuminati type of nefariousness, creepiness of these cult-like entities like in Rosemary's Baby, whatever you want to call it. These witches in plain sight that are really ancient fucking entities like that. I just think it's a cooler way to look at it though, because I do appreciate horror movies like this. If I set out to make a horror movie, yeah, I want to make it as fucked up as possible. And I don't think this one is really that fucked up. I'm not doing Rob Zombie, that type of gore, or other horror movies that just go completely over the fucking whatever line you want to draw in the sand. I don't know what line there is because I don't watch a lot of horror movies these days. I'm just thinking of some of the classics I've watched throughout my life to kind of form how far should I go in this scene? Should I have these demonic creatures like pecking this guy's guts out? Yeah, I think I have to go that far because that's where it is today. And probably since the 70s, you could look at horror movies and I guess even The Shining, right? The Shining's pretty fucked up. It's not gory, but The Shining has that psychological appeal to it that will just freak you out, man. That's more of the side of the horror coin I want to go towards. I'm not trying to make a gore fest, which is blood, 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 slashing, one of those slasher films. That's not what this is. I'm more on the side of Rosemary's Baby, Jacob's Ladder, and what did I just say? The Shining. I don't think I mentioned The Shining before. I mentioned those other two. But yeah, The Shining, it doesn't have a lot of killing, right? It just freaks you out with some of the visuals and the music, the way Kubrick directed that. And yeah, that's what I'm going for. Again, that's a very simple story, but it doesn't matter. You could really portray the psychological horror to any type of story. And that's all I'm trying to do with this. The plot line is very simple. It's been done before. Trying to make it in the music business, but has it been done with that dark occult element of witchcraft and demonic entities and the dark underbelly of that whole artistic scene? I don't think it's been done like that, but I could be wrong. I don't have a great knowledge of the history of folklore and horror movies. But I'll end it here. I was going to say one of the greatest documentaries I watched, and I'll probably forget what it's called. I'll talk about it. Well, hold on one second. I want to get it out now so I don't forget. All right, one last thing. This is going on too long, but I have a lot of things I wanted to talk about. There's a documentary that I saw on Amazon called Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched. It's a documentary about the history of folk horror, like the Wicker Man and movies like that. I watched this years ago because it was just made in 2021. So it's fairly new, but it's long. It's like over 3 hours of a documentary, and it goes back and traces the history of fucked up movies like The Wicker Man, whatever that was probably the 70s, right? Or Suspiria, or I don't know, more of those psychological horror films that go after the occult and stuff like that. I mentioned Rosemary's Baby. That's that director that got in trouble. I forget his name now. Man, I'm bad with people's names like that. What was the guy who directed? He's pretty famous. He got, right? Didn't he have to flee to France because they thought he was, I don't know, molested someone or something? Again, I don't know the story. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. What was the name of that movie? Or the director of Rosemary's Baby? He had another movie with Johnny Depp, The Ninth Gate. The Ninth Gate. Yeah, it's another Roman Polanski. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name. Regardless of what he did or not in his life, he's a really cool director, man. I don't even want to look up what the controversy is. I don't know. Supposedly there's some drugging and raping. I don't know, man. I don't know what the whole thing is. So I don't want to talk about it. That's not my generation, dude. But yeah, if he really did that stuff, yeah, I guess I wouldn't really want to talk about him in a glowing fashion. But that's the thing. I don't really know what the truth is about this stuff. It's related to the Manson family. Holy shit. The Rosemary's Baby. Yeah, okay. The film's legacy is haunted by the 1969 murder. All right, so that was Polanski's wife, Sharon Tate, that got killed by the Manson family. Holy fuck. Maybe that's why he went towards the witchcraft in a lot of his movies and shit. But he's got a movie called The Ninth Gate. Is that what it's called, with Johnny Depp? And it's about, more of that demonic shit. Or I don't think that's the name of it. But why did I bring this up? Yeah, it is. Okay, The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. It's a 1999 movie. Roman Polanski movie. And it's another supernatural type of witchcrafty movie. I watched it a couple years ago. It was pretty good. So that's what I'm going for. And the documentary that I had to mention, I'll watch it again maybe later today to get me more in that horror film type of mode. It's called Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched. I'm looking on my phone right now, so it's kind of tight. I can't really read it. Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched from 2021. It's a long-ass documentary, but it's one of the best things I watched in the last few years about horror movies and the legacy of it and where it really came from in its infancy stages. It's really good. I have to watch it again because I don't remember much of it. But I would recommend watching that. I had to buy it because it was so good. I think when I watched it the first time, I made a list of movies I was supposed to watch, but I never got to it. Like I usually do, I kind of forget about shit. But I'm going to stop it here. Later today, I'll finish this story and I'll ramble more like this about some other things I wanted to mention, because these are all relevant to why I wrote this story, the influences that led me to this path, and I'll keep going later.